Are you struggling to build or even maintain the muscle that you have, even though you're working out and eating enough protein? Well, this is everything you need to know about holding on to your muscle and even building it as you get older.
So, Steve, remember how we used to work out and train in the 80s and 90s with no pain, no gain?
Right.
Grind it out, double workouts, sometimes triple workouts. Things have changed, right? It's different. The way we worked out to get to 40 and 50 is not how we're working out and training to get to into 100, right? So that's a theme for ours, and I think that it's an important conversation to have. So what are the main differences in the way that we approach exercise and working out in our 50s going forward, as opposed to the way we kind of got into it back in our early 20s?
I think there's certain principles that don't change. I think what doesn't change is the fact that you kind of want to get from where you are to a better place, right? You're always trying to improve your ability. I think what happens as we get older is we're trying to not necessarily improve, because again, there's an arc, right? I think you're at your strongest under the age of 35. I think you reach maximum strength. Again, I think 33 years old is the point. And then from there, there's going to be a decline. So then after that, so let's just say after 35 years old, your objective is to decline more slowly than possible. But let's just say you went from 30 to 50 with no physical activity whatsoever. And then at 50, you're like, ooh, I got a problem. I want to do things differently. Well, then just walking 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week is enough to mitigate so many health problems. But if we take you at 54 years old and say, Dave, I need you to walk 30 minutes 3 times a week, you'll be like, what?
I do that 3 times a day.
You're going to become less healthy, right? So knowing your starting point is important. Knowing what your objectives are important. I think for you and I, we're trying to slow the decline down.
Right.
I want to be stronger.
But think about so I think it's a mentality thing too. So, and I want to speak to people like us, our age, who, when they went to college, high school and college, hit the gym, they read the magazines, even the women, guys and girls, whatever, working out, lifting weights. There was always at the time, it was almost like you pushed your body to the extreme so it could adapt. And the more extreme you can push it physically, more extreme you can push it, maybe even dietary-wise. Like it was almost like it was about expanding your capacity. And the mentality was like, the harder and you push, the more you're going to expand. It's like if I bang my head against the wall enough, I'll develop such a calcium thing that I can be a good headbanger, right? So that was the thought. And I think the sense that I have now is that mentality worked to a degree. I mean, I had get great results, but also created great pain, inflammation, and stress, right? So I wouldn't do that now, partially because I get much better results now not doing that.
Sure.
So I'm crazy enough to, I probably would, I mean, I was CrossFitting up till maybe 6 to 8 years ago until I finally ground it all down, right? So I realized there was not much more where I can go from that mentality, right? So when I shifted, I was shocked to realize how much healthier, more fit, more stable, how my body reacts more naturally to positive things than I was before when I was really grinding it out. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to help people avoid hurting themselves, first of all, right? So having that mentality going forward, I know can't exist. But if you don't know any other way, right, and you got results before, and from now an emotional perspective and a results perspective, I'm attached to what I did before because it gave me what I wanted, right? So my mind is going to want to go back to what worked before, but I know that's going to be destructive. So is there another way? And what I'm alluding to is I think we've found the way to go forward.
Sure.
Effectively, efficiently, to get the best results without, and not only not to do it that way and avoid the energy and the expense of the energy and the grind, but it's actually more efficient, that I'm actually able to get better results with far less pain, grind, and exertion.
Define results. What you considered a result 10, 15, 20 years ago, what constituted results is probably different than now. Like you just said, I don't want to get hurt. At 55 years old, that's my top priority. When it comes to everything I do from a physical fitness standpoint, my top priority is don't get hurt, because if I get hurt, I'm taken out of the game for whatever period of time it takes to heal, and the older you get, the longer it takes to heal.
I think the goal back then was just more, like just more, bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
How well could this body perform? It was about human performance, and
so
I think we did find
curious.
our limits.
I'm curious about I'm fascinated. My favorite documentary of all time is The Game. What is it called?
The Squid Game?
No.
Oh, I was going to say. I thought a documentary. Seemed like it, but.
What is it? The Michael Jordan 10-part series?
Oh, yeah, Michael Jordan's, yeah.
What was it called?
Was it Love of the Game? Was it Love
No,
of the Game?
no. Anyway,
Well, someone will comment in the comments.
Anything Michael Jordan.
Yes.
His assistant coach in North Carolina when he was in college, he told him, I want to be the best in the world. And he goes, well, then you're going to have to work a hell of a lot harder than you've been working, and certainly harder than you were working in high school. He's like, I work as hard as anybody else. And the coach said, oh, I thought you wanted to be the best in the world. And then his response was, nobody will work harder than me. That's it. So there was a guy whose objective was to be the best athlete in a sport to ever have existed. That was his goal. So you can imagine he trained harder and more than anybody else, mentally and physically. All right, but now he's retired. He's probably, what is he, like 60 years old? And he, I think he looks great. But I'm curious what he's doing right now, because if his mindset for so many decades of his life was harder, go. But now, what is his objective? It's not to be the best.
Changes, right?
Yeah. So now he's 60. His primary objective should probably be, I don't want to get hurt. Secondary objective is, I want to decline really slow. Another objective is, at 60 years old, here's what I can do. So if my objective is to live to 100 years old, what should that look like? So if I imagine myself at 100, there's certain things I want to be able to do. I want to be able to squat. Why? Because I want to get off the toilet and get out of a car on my own. I don't want any help. I want to climb a flight of stairs. I want to bend down and pick up a 30-pound great-grandchild.
Right.
And maybe if I'm in a swimming pool, I want to be able to climb out.
Walk around the town, go visit somewhere, and
carry groceries.
Walk 10,000 feet.
At 100, it's asking a lot, right? All right, cool. So if that's your objective at 100, who do you have to be at 80? And if you know who you have to be at 80, then who do you have to be at 60? And are you there, right? So that's kind of a way of looking at it. If we're going to talk about longevity and quality of life and health span, Peter Attia calls it what does he call it? He calls it the decathlon of, the 100-year-old person or whatever. What are the 10 things you want to be able to do at 100 and work backwards from there? Okay. Because if you want to do that stuff at 100, you better be able to do certain things at 80. Right. You better be able to do certain things at 60. So this is where our conversation about VO2 and all the different markers that we measure, all the metrics.
Right. Well, you just said something, and getting back to Michael Jordan had a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Jordan had a goal to be the best in the world, which, by the way, he's the GOAT as far as I'm concerned, right? He achieved that goal. And then after the goal, it's another goal. Mm-hmm. So you just said it perfectly. When we were younger, it was about more. How fast could I get? How strong could I get? How, muscular, ripped, whatever you want to call it. Those were the, better at a sport, better at what you were doing at the time. But now, I can totally relate to saying, if I can get out of my car and walk across the parking lot without limping, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Because the limp makes me feel like I'm getting old, and I'm a little stiff sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so walking, instead of having the biggest biceps, on campus, being able to walk. And that's been a mantra of mine for a while with my clients and my patients. It's like, you know what? You want to really get good at the sport of walking.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a human being who plans on walking around for the rest of their life, get really good at walking now, okay? Because as you don't use it, you lose it. And when you lose it, the next step is a wheelchair. And the thing is, not that that's good or bad to be in a wheelchair. A lot of people I know in wheelchairs, but if you ask them if they'd rather be able to walk too,
Yeah.
they probably say yes. So
Absolutely.
it's the idea of future, like what does it look like? What should your goals look like? Do you want to be the person at the nursing home with the walker, or the one that kind of can walk up and get the juice himself because he's cool, right?
Yeah.
So I look at things that way because it motivates me. Walking was an issue. I was getting a limp, and I was able to do some of the things that we've done through exercise activity, rucking and walking. That's made a big difference in my life. So maybe that's part of it, like why we work out now. What's the purpose of it?
Yeah. I think the systems in the body that contribute the most. So let's think of it this way. Muscle strength and how efficiently we produce and utilize energy are the two things that have been shown to reduce all-cause mortality the most. So it's hard to do longevity studies, but reducing all-cause mortality, that, all the things that could cause death.
And you've often said that exercise is probably the number one
Most bang for your buck.
hedge against, aging. Right?
Because of an organ we call muscle.
Okay. So this conversation just went from looking good in a bathing suit at 50, 60, and 70 to saving our life and increasing our life and health span.
Correct. So your muscle serves several purposes. Number one, it's your armor, right? Well, if you're 40 years old and you trip and fall and you land on your butt, you have an ass. You have muscle. The biggest muscle group in your body is your gluteal muscles. And, at 80 years old, I promise you, your ass will be a hell of a lot smaller.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, well, from a muscle standpoint, it might be bigger with fat, but certainly the muscles. And the muscles are your armor. It protects you, right? It protects you from external events. Just from just think of it as a suit of armor.
Right. A meat suit.
A meat suit. But it's also an endocrine organ, sending signals around the body for energy needs, and right, that's how we're going to take the food we eat and utilize the energy and store the energy and
so muscle's
create that
smarter than we originally thought. We just thought it was just a muscle that just did this.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's got other further reaching implications to our health on the hormonal level, on a sensory level.
Yeah, so we're
storage
chiropractors,
level.
right? We're chiropractors. We recognize the core principle in our profession is the central nervous system. The nervous system is the master system, the system that controls all the other systems in the body. Its primacy can be explained in so many ways, but let's just say your brain is 2% of your body weight, but it uses up to 20 to 30% of your energy requirements, telling you that how hard it's working. Well, where does the nervous system, what is your nervous system adapting to? We talked about how the brain is in this closed case with no light, no sound, no gravity. It's floating in this fluid. It doesn't know that it's always 98.6 degrees. The brain is just sitting there, but it gets information from all of our receptors, right? So temperature receptors on our skin will tell the brain what the temperature is outside. The brain is not experiencing Arctic temperatures in the winter, and it's not experiencing tropic temperatures in the summer, but the body is, and the body's communicating with the brain, and the brain reacts, right? So the overwhelming majority of information coming from the world into your central nervous system, into your brain, you could argue different, your eyes see the world and it's sending the messages into the brain. Your ears hear the world and it's sending messages into your brain. But the overwhelming majority of sensory input is coming from joints, tendons, and muscles. We call those muscle spindles. Those are receptors that send an electrical signal into the brain. This is your position in space. This is how gravity is affecting you. It's 24 hours. It's nonstop. And that allows the brain to then set its position and its relationships and its ability to react to all the things that are going on around you. So if your muscles are getting smaller and less active as you get older, there's less information going to your brain.
Right.
And if there's less information going to your brain, there's less reaction of your brain to the environment around you. So just from an information about the world standpoint, muscles are driving that. I mean, tremendously. And the chiropractic profession recognizes that when we change the positional relationships of joints in the spine, because the greatest population of those receptors are central, closest to the spine, and rostral, meaning closest to this segment, the very top segment of your spine. That muscular activity is what you need throughout your life for your brain to do all the things that it does. And then the muscles use energy in the to move our bodies. So if that gets smaller, then we use our energy less efficient.
So you got muscles as an incredible input sensory organ to the body and motion of life, as well as a very big player in the metabolic action of your body. And I might even add this from just a life perspective. I love to think of it this way: is that your brain is getting feedback from your movement and your muscles as to what you're doing in your life. So you're always going to adapt to your lifestyle. So by using your body and your muscles, you're not only telling it that you're moving and you're eating and it's doing this process, but it's also telling your brain that I'm still here, I'm still active, I'm alive, I do stuff. And I think that's such an important thing for the brain to know, because once it starts to get signals of I'm doing less, I'm resting more, I'm becoming less active, you're literally telling the brain and the system that now I'm preparing myself. My body, as I'm getting older, no longer needs to hunt, no longer needs to gather, no longer needs to fight, and now I'm getting comfortable. And the ultimate comfort is the long sleep in the casket, right? So I think that what we're signaling to our nervous system and our body every single day through our muscle movement and through our activity is telling our brain, what is our next goal? Okay, and if our next goal is more rest and less activity,
you're going to get it.
The body starts to give you become very efficient at being able to sit on a couch, sleep more, relax, watch Jeopardy, play bingo.
So that loss,
go to the early bird special.
Right. So that loss of muscle volume and activity, they give it a name. They call it sarcopenia. Just like osteopenia is less bone, sarcopenia is less muscle. And according to the research, sarcopenia increases all-cause mortality by 20 to 30%. Wow. Let me put that into perspective. Smoking increases all-cause mortality by like 4%. So sarcopenia, loss of muscle, is far more dangerous than anything else, right? And smoking is horrible.
Right. So if you're sitting around smoking, it's even worse.
Right. So all-cause mortality is all-cause mortality. That includes falls, that includes cancer, that includes heart attacks, that includes all the things that would take you out. So for sarcopenia to be that massive, then there's no test that you can do. There's all these genetic tests and blood tests and all these things. They give you your biological age. If you're looking at any biological age metric that doesn't include muscle strength and muscle volume and muscle physiology, it's not a biological age, because that is playing the biggest role. And how you process oxygen, which tells us about mitochondria, which are the engines of energy production in the body. So those two measurements, VO2 and muscle strength, are the two things that would give you the most benefit for longevity. When you understand that, you have to ask yourself, all right, then where are the pitfalls? Where does this system go? Let's just say I'm not lazy. I work out. I have a great diet. I do. It's not. This is not about the couch potato. The couch potato is not listening to us.
Right.
But people like us are listening to us, and we're doing everything we can, and we're still declining. And I know there's things I can do more of tomorrow that would make this story a lot better for me, knowing all the things that I know. So there's a concept that came out around the year 2000 called anabolic resistance. So if we think of two states of being, catabolic and anabolic, catabolic is breaking things down in the body to make up for your energy needs, and anabolic is building things up. And we know that your muscles and your bones are not these static organs that just exist. The largest proteins in your body are in your muscles, and they have a half-life of 8 days. All you have to do is put your arm in a cast. When you break your arm and you take that cast off in 6 weeks, and your arm is half the size of the other side. So there's a constant breakdown and rebuilding of bone, of muscle. And when we're resistant to that, we get more breakdown than we get buildup. Why do we get more breakdown? We get more breakdown because we're not as sensitive to the stimulus that would allow us to build up. So when you're 20 years old, the stimulus to build up is eat some protein and get outside and run around. That's it. That's all you need, because hormones and genetics are driving that because of your youth. Well, that hormonal stimulus is a hell of a lot less when you get older. So you need better quality protein. You need probably more protein, and you need a greater stimulus. And the stimulus being resistance exercise when it comes to muscle. So here we are saying, as you get older, you shouldn't be working harder, but I'm saying you need a greater stimulus when you're older than you did when you were younger. That doesn't necessarily mean heavier than when you were 20 years old, but heavier than yesterday. So you do have to have a progressive resistance exercise program that allows you.
You're trying to get stronger.
You're trying to get stronger.
Yeah, you're just trying to.
But for me,
put a little another plate on as long as you're going regularly. But
yeah.
realize sometimes you take a week off, it drops.
Or when you think about joints, and my primary goal is to not get injured. The faster a joint moves, theoretically, the less stable it is, the more likely it is to experience an injury. So I might lift the same weight I lifted yesterday, but today I might try to do it slower.
So perfect example, because I experienced this, and I left my chiropractic, full-time chiropractic practice because of chronic pain. I'd fractured my neck and my shoulder, and I had all kinds of injuries prior to chiropractic, but the 25 years of practice wore me down. So when I go to the gym, I have now that I think about it, I only go to the gym 3 times a week. Now I do maintain a good amount of muscle, and I don't feel like I need to go more than that. If I go more, I'll cause more repetitive injury and tendon problems with my shoulder and things like that. That being said, I'm not using the free weights and the Olympic barbells anymore. I don't think I've touched that thing in a while. It hurts my shoulder, but I certainly will find the hammer strength machine, which I love the mechanics on the hammer strength, or the Cybex, right? But I'm really vigilant of where I set my seat, where my body is, because I know if I'm a little bit off, it's going to affect my shoulder. So I have found ways where I can now use a lot of force in my exercise by using a controlled machine, okay? And I get the same, I don't work out anywhere near as hard and often in reps, but so I'll do maybe 3 or 4, 2 or 3 sets, exercises for chest, couple for tries. I have a 2-day split. It's push and pull, right?
Yeah.
And I throw legs in there. And I go to the gym 3 times a week. So one of those I'm going to hit twice and one I'm going to hit once. That's simple as it is.
Right.
And man, I feel like I still gain strength. I feel lean. And I do the zone 2 rucking pretty much daily, if not sometimes twice a day with a walk and a ruck. But that's kind of the activity. So my activity level, maybe going to the gym 3 times a week. I might do some push-ups. I might do some sit-ups and air squats at home. I move my body.
Yeah.
But as far as resistance training, it's controlled. It's usually machines. It's always something that I don't have to get too crazy with, that I can work out stable. And I still have some irritation, inflammation if I do it a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
So that's the game for me.
Yeah, and I mean, this is not a podcast on our expertise in physical fitness and exercise, and I think you're hitting the main points of resistance.
And not doing what we used to do.
Zone 2 cardiovascular. I would throw in there stability, and flexibility. Having a routine for that is super important, because the range of motion of each of your joints need to be as close to optimal as possible for you to utilize the muscles that would bring you into that range of motion. If I was restricted, if my shoulder could only get to here, then any muscle associated with doing this is going to atrophy, right? So range of motion and flexibility is super important. And stability is super important. I mean, what happens to 80-year-olds and 90-year-olds? They fall. Why do they fall? Perhaps they're weak and they just don't have the muscular ability to prevent the fall, grab onto the banister or whatever the story is. Or perhaps their balance is off.
Proprioceptive balance.
Proprioceptive. So
if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right. So if you were to just say, what are all of the components? It's cardiovascular fitness, zone 2. It also could be high intensity cardiovascular fitness. I don't think you need as much of that, but you still should work on that. There's muscle strength, like you've described. There's flexibility and stability,
yes.
Proprioception. Those are all the components that you should probably have in your weekly routine.
Which that last piece is super important, which you didn't even touch on, but needs to be added in as we get older.
Yeah.
So that's really so that mobility, flexibility is a daily thing.
Yeah.
For me, zone 2 training is a daily thing. I'm just always moving, and I'm always keeping myself mobile. But then again, sometimes you do some sprint work. Hit the gym a couple times, and it's not so you're not a 7-day a week, double sessions, you know what I mean? Finding what works best for you, and then setting your goals. For me, it's being able to be pain-free, that I can use my body. I know that today I'll go and I'll have some honey-do list, which includes tearing up all my tomato plants and bringing them to the recycling center. It's a physical job, right? So as we get older, it's not just about being healthy, it's about being able to live our life, to move ourselves around. And that becomes our new goal. Like, you see Michael Jordan, he's not, jumping off from the foul line, dunking the ball, but he's got the cigar in his mouth. He's playing a little golf, and his goals in life have changed. Our goals have changed, and it all around really about lifestyle and enjoying life.
Right.
And extending our ability to enjoy life.
Yeah, and my goodness, I feel so bad for, we're the sandwich generation where we're raising our kids and we're taking care of our elderly parents, and it makes it difficult for a lot of people in our generation to go on vacation, to, enjoy the success that we've had in our life, and because we have people to take care of, whether it be our children or our parents. I don't want my kids with that headache. I don't want my kids when I'm 90 years old thinking, what are we going to do with Dad?
Right.
I can't go on a family vacation because who's going to manage his?
It's interesting. Culturally, we came up in those at time in the 80s. We're working out, but it was kind of all new. There was no map back then. It was kind of the Wild West, and everybody tried the new workout, whatever you saw, the Weeder doing. But so seeing that now. Knowing our parents didn't have that. Our parents looked at us, we're going to the gym. That was like, gym was always like, kind of a thing you did on the side. If you're into work, he works out. He's into that. It's
now it's
his thing. It's his hobby.
Our kids are on TikTok. We went to the gym. Our kids are on TikTok.
But because our parents looked at us like that was not something, they kind of got into it following us. It was a fad at the time. Watching them never really experience the benefits of that. We grew up in that, right? So we grew up in that. We're looking at how to extend our health span going forward. But our kids aren't growing up like we did. They're actually learning the new stuff. You've got 18, 19-year-old kids who are online they're on TikTok, but what they're actually learning, they're learning about metabolism. Yeah. They're watching our podcast. Yeah. So they're actually starting way better because it was the Wild West for us. It's much more navigatable, right? Our kids are eating properly. They're watching. They're on social media. My kids don't party like we did when we were
My
younger.
kids wake up on a Saturday and they see me just getting home from a 40-mile bike ride.
Right.
So leading by example is something our generation certainly has been able
Most
to
of my walks
to
are with
do.
one of my daughters, and which is as a parent is an amazing opportunity to have. Yet they want to walk and be fit too. So
Right.
they'll have a different experience. Their kids will have a different experience as we pass it along. But I think for us, having come up in the Wild West where we had to figure it out, and we did. And as as chiropractors, we have the benefit of understanding science and being able to read research and understand what that means, immediately apply it to ourselves and to our clients. But that makes, we're unique, right? So we're trying to get that information to the people of our age. So if you did grow up in the 80s and you navigated it a certain way, and then you started a family, you started a business, you were in great shape in college in your 20s and 30s, it was great, and now you're finding yourself in your 40s and 50s. The biggest pitfall that I want people to realize is what got them healthy in the first 40 years is not what's going to get them healthy going forward. And they may have taken a period of off to grow their family, to build their business.
Although if we break it down, yes, food, exercise, sleep, all those, that didn't change. But what your objectives are as you get older, those objectives should change.
Right, and the process in order to maximize those is nowhere near what we thought it used to be. It's much more effective and efficient. It's far less painful, and it's better for you.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is a big piece of our podcast and our communities, and even when we work with our clients, is having people realize that we're not bringing you back to running 10 miles a day. We're not bringing you back to double sessions of working out and lifting and starving yourself and eating, the way that many people remember the benefits they had, but they also remember what it took to get there. And maybe they're like, maybe I don't want to go through that again. I'm older, and if I look around, most people our age are just kind of getting older gracefully and just whatever. I want to be able to give those people the opportunity to realize it's not as hard. The healthier way is not as much of a grind, and it's not as painful, and it's actually very beneficial.
And just requires consistency.
It's consistency,
Yeah.
Let's speak to that.
So, what I'd like to get into the nuts and bolts a little bit about what this anabolic resistance is, because there's certain things we can't change. Age, we're going to age, right? I'm not foreseeing our generation experiencing any weird kind of, you're going to get a new heart, new kidney, new lungs. You're just going to live to 150 years old. I know there's a lot of people in Silicon Valley who are like, our generation is going to be the first to live to 150 years old.
There's talk of med beds where you get some quantum energetic bed and it takes out all the
I'd like to
quantum health. That's what it is, quantum health.
I'd like to take the world and the body God gave us and treat it as best as we can and optimize that, and whatever technology comes out that we could benefit from, great. But I'm not placing any bets on living to 150 years old because there's a new drug or CRISPR technology that's going to take the code that God put into our DNA, and there's some really smart scientist that knows better, right? And is going to change your genetic
there is
code.
a mentality around that, by the way.
Of course.
So we've always taken the perspective of our hedge is to understand as much as we possibly can about anatomy and physiology and how to apply it practically.
We weren't born, thank God, you and I were not born with genetic diseases that need CRISPR technology to go ahead and correct. Otherwise, we die young. I'm all for technology that's going to help people with sickle cell anemia and Down syndrome and all those things. That's fine. But for you and I at 55 years old, where we're blessed to be healthy, I'm going to do everything I can to take care of this body that I was given. And what I do understand about science is that anabolic resistance is an important concept, because the body's always breaking down and rebuilding. The stimulus to break down is always, we're always moving towards entropy, right? Just breaking down until we're dust and dirt. But this stimulus to rebuild. So we said exercise, of course, all the forms of exercise we discussed. But we need a greater stimulus for that because we don't have the hormones that we had when we were younger that drive that. So what I mean by that is when we, there's testosterone, which is a hormone made by your gonads, but there's also growth hormone, which is made by your pituitary gland, your brain. Now, what does growth hormone do? It stimulates the liver to make IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. And that is an anabolic hormone. And we get less of that when we get older. That drives a genetic switch called mTOR to take the food we eat and the activity we do and turn it into muscle, to turn it into this organ that we need to feed our brain and all the things. So in order to maximize our growth hormone and IGF-1 production and mTOR activation, we need exercise and we need food. When you're 20 years old and you're eating really low quality plant-based proteins, you're going to use that optimally and you're going to turn it into muscle. Whereas you and I shouldn't be depending on plant-based protein, right? We really shouldn't, like pea protein and things like that people are eating. Animal protein is far superior as you get older.
Is it more biologically relatable to an animal to eat?
Yes.
Is this broken down amino acids?
When you break down the amino acids, the concentration of the ones that drive this mTOR switch, one of them is called leucine, and that's optimized in animal protein. So you need leucine, and the amount of leucine you need is like 40% more when you're in your later years than when you were younger. Mm-hmm. So wasting your time with low quality protein, wasting your money, wasting your digestive capacity with that is not a good idea. Animal proteins are far better as we get older because there's more leucine, greater mTOR. Again, the amount of leucine you needed to activate mTOR could have been, let's just say, 2 to 3 grams when you were 20. Now it's 3.5 to 4.5 grams. So you want more of that, and that's going to come from the higher quality or animal-based proteins. That way you can activate this process of rebuilding more. So you can benefit from the exercise that you're doing. So while exercise is the number one thing, supporting the exercise with diet is very important.
It's interesting, the work that we do now and the change in the diet and exercise that I've made. I mean, I don't never really feel like I've had it so dialed in as I do now, and it doesn't seem as hard. Maybe because it's been a lifestyle it's not that difficult when you really know what you're doing. I think the hard part when we were younger is kind of it was always a shot in the dark. It was always an experiment, and now having some facts makes it probably is another element why it makes it a lot different. We were just shotgun approaching it, doing whatever we thought was going to work and see what stuck, and everything stuck when we were younger. So you never knew what was getting a result.
Right.
If we did that now, we wouldn't get the same result. So I think it's picking out the things that we know work that has made the process much easier. And I just do think to get healthy in your second 50 years is easier if done correctly.
Correct. And again, if we go into the nuts and bolts of what's happening, we know that insulin is a anabolic hormone, but it's not an anabolic hormone like testosterone or IGF-1 is. Insulin does a couple of things. It not only helps us store nutrients that are coming in, like glucose, and put them into fat or glycogen, but insulin also allows for blood vessels to dilate. And that's important because those amino acids that we're talking about have to get into the muscle. And the older we get, the less efficient our blood delivery is. So you can have all this leucine floating around in your blood, but if the capillaries don't dilate, if the blood vessels don't dilate near the muscle's not going to take them in to rebuild muscle cells. So one of the ways that we improve And we don't need a lot of insulin signaling for that. It's not like more insulin is better. You just have to have insulin, and you just have to not be type 1 diabetic to have enough insulin for that. But nitric oxide is a molecule that your body makes that certainly dilates blood vessels. It's been shown to reduce blood pressure because of that. It dilates the blood vessels. It's a super molecule that your body makes efficiently when you're young, and it declines with age. So supporting your nitric oxide production is really, really important so you can dilate the blood vessels going to your muscle so your muscle can take in the amino acids that are coming from your diet and use it to build muscle. The presence of the just eating the food is not enough.
Right.
It's...
So how would you increase your NO2? How do you nitric oxide?
Your nitric oxide is going to increase with exercise, right? Specifically cardiovascular type of exercise, but any exercise. Sodium nitrate, which is from your food, particularly vegetables have sodium nitrate in them, and an amino acid called L-arginine, which is not an essential amino acid. If you're low in L-arginine, you'll make what you need. But people do supplement with L-arginine in order to increase their nitric oxide production. So, and then doing things that prevent you from making less nitric oxide, like getting a good night's sleep. A lot of nitric oxide is produced while you're sleeping. Sleep apnea and snoring and having a dry mouth when you wake up prevents you from making nocturnal nitric oxide. So making sure you have a healthy microbiome, making sure that when you sleep, your mouth is closed and not getting all dried out.
Because it's the bacteria in the nose that's creating
bacteria in your mouth and your nose during the night. Not using oral antiseptics at bedtime, like scope and Listerine and these types of things that kill all the bacteria in your mouth that you need, because the nitrates from your dinner are going to recycle their way through your saliva, and it's going to allow you to make nocturnal nitric oxide, which is why cardiovascular disease is so prevalent in people with sleep apnea.
We're talking a lot about how effective and efficient we were younger and how things slow down as we get older. So I think of this scenario of maybe somebody who didn't do anything till now, yet starts to do all the right things. What does that outcome look like? Because they've never had that efficient function, maybe, or if it was efficient was because not just by accident. They never challenged that system, never tapped into that system. But now, for the first time, they are. Yeah. Is it worth it for somebody to start tapping into it now if they've never done it before? Are they going to? So you said it declines, but I guess the question is, would it increase for that person who now starts to?
Yeah. The way I look at it is the way I look at VO2 max. So if I take someone who's not been very active from 30 to 50, and I check their VO2 max and it's poor, just say it's 30. Right. Just to give you an idea, I'm in the top 10% of my age group for VO2 max, and mine is 49. The last time I checked it, for my age. So if you take that 50-year-old and they're at 30, they can do a lot of things that can increase their VO2 max to get from 30 to 45. I mean, that can happen. It takes work. And then when they maximize how much they can improve, then the objective is to slow the decline after that. So the answer to your question is, yeah, if you're not in the top 10 percentile of whatever it is we're talking about, nitric oxide production, glutathione production, a lot of these molecules that decline with age, do the things that improve them, optimize them, and then keep the lifestyle going so that your decline.
So there's hope. There's hope. There's hope for everyone. As long as there's hope for the ones who've never done anything. And
if you're not 6 feet under, there's hope.
Right. And if you've done everything and stopped, then it's going to reverse as well. So it's just a matter of pick up the baton wherever you're at and start changing your lifestyle incrementally. Right. And start taking these. Really, the metrics are key. Getting a baseline, and then how do you grow those? And then you literally can say, I'm decreasing my all-cause mortality by raising these metrics in my life. So that's why these pillars are so key. So we talked a lot about, the food, the workout part. We talked about the food part. What about the recovery end of things. I mean, I know recovery when it comes to health and fitness is the thing, right? It's the workout might last an hour, but the next 23 hours to 48 hours is the process of recovery. What does that look like as we get older?
I just think you need more recovery time as you get older. So there's a lot of, I belong to Lifetime Fitness here in, a nice suburban Bergen County, and there's no shortage of women in, between 45 and 65 years old taking these HIIT classes, and they look 20 years younger than they really are, and they're doing 5 HIIT classes a week, and it's very high intensity. They look great, but they feel terrible, right? Because they're not giving themselves an opportunity to recover. They're not doing any zone 2. They're going straight to zone 3 and 4, 5 days a week. Yeah.
They're kind of doing what we said we would expect most people to do. Do what got results when you were younger. And because you don't have any other option, I think by dialing the diet recovery, right? The reason I go to the gym 3 times a week is because if I went more, it would hurt tendons and joints and probably doesn't impact anything else positively. So by dialing it back, I'm kind of naturally lazy. Like if I can only work 3 times a week in the gym and get the same or better results than I got before, why would I go more? And if I take a walk with my kids, like I've tapped into this ability to feel really fit and feel really good about my body composition and energy. By doing less than I was doing before and spending time with my kids doing it.
It's funny. I look at my dog. Now, I've only had, my dog is 7 years old. Prior to that, getting that dog, I never had a pet in my life. So I don't know anything about dogs. All I know is the one dog I got, little Duke, 22-pound little guy, and he eats raw meat. That's it. That's all we fed him from the day he was that we got him when he was like a month old, and that's it. Twice a day. There's no kibble, dried food. It's not like they can just go and nibble on things. And Duke, if you try to give him a biscuit of any, he'll never accept it as food, right? So I kind of think that my dog is living the way genetically a dog should live, I think. And I look at him. And when I take him out and I let him run, and he runs and he runs and he runs and he runs, but all day he's just laying around, and he can turn on a dime and become incredibly active, right? So I think it's okay for us to have many hours of being inactive, as long as we have so much time of being very active.
Go move your body.
Yeah,
move your body.
I don't think you have to stress out about always being moving, but you do have to move sufficiently.
I also believe if you are immobile or you sit at a desk or you work, you want to change your psychology. The best thing to do is start moving your physiology, right? Go for a walk, get outside. And it's like, oh, it's cold, I don't want to go. No. The second you go outside, that all changes. Your dopamine starts to seek things. Oh, I'm outside. Wow, look at the trees. Like, let's go for a little longer walk. Let's stay out here, which is interesting because when you're inside, you don't want to go out there.
Right.
It's like this thing, but it's such a natural thing for us to get out and to move. If I've been at my desk all day, and my wife will come home from work, and I'll just say, I got to go move my body. See, I say that all the time. And I'll go to the gym. I'll do something. I'll take a kid. I'll put a sack on my back, go for a walk, but I have to move my body. There's not a day that goes by that I don't move my body. Yeah, it's almost like eating for me. My joints have to move. My body has to move. I have to have some sort of physical activity to even for my body to think it's a day. So I just put that out there because how many people don't realize that physical element is such a part of our life, right? We're starting to signal to our body that we're alive, that we walk, we're going to get water at the well, we're going to, pick the crops, we're going to go, shoot a bird or whatever. So that's the kind of thing that we signal to our body that lets us know that we're still alive. So let's talk about that element, because for me, when I go to the gym, that's not just my physical therapy, or if I'm exercising, even if I'm in the gym or outside, it's my mental therapy.
Yeah. I mean, why do we have gyms but to pretend that we're hunter-gatherers?
Right.
Right? Because we don't have to move. We don't have to build shelters every day. We don't have to hunt and gather our food. So we go to the gym and we pretend to be doing those things, right? In order for us to do the things that humans always needed to do to optimize their health. For the listener, what are the things that would be best to know to overcome this anabolic resistance? So we talked about anabolic resistance being a problem with blood delivery and delivering the amino acids and getting them into the muscle cell and the muscle cell using them and having the proper stimulus for the muscle cell to want to grow. What else? Well, the older we get, the more insulin resistant we become. The more resistant to insulin, remember, insulin resistance is overproducing insulin and your cells becoming deaf to that.
Right.
So if your blood vessel cells are experiencing too much insulin, they become resistant to it. So you have too much insulin giving you the effects of too little insulin.
Right. So it was like you become desensitized to it.
Right.
It kind of opens the garage door halfway.
Right.
It doesn't allow all the sugar in. It doesn't.
Right.
It's inefficient.
Right.
And inefficiency creates longer standing blood in the sugar, affecting, creating more insulin resistance, I'd imagine. So it becomes this slowing down of an efficient system.
Right. And when
which can be reversed. Because we keep
Oh,
saying
yeah,
as you
of
get
course.
older, but as you
move
get older without
towards
changing what you're
you
doing.
move towards resistance. You decrease muscle, you increase fat. When you increase fat, so just again, we said your muscles are an organ, your fat cells are an organ. So if you're, and they're an endocrine organ, they send signals, right? So just like your thyroid gland, it makes a hormone, it sends signals. Well, if your thyroid gland was this big, you had a big giant goiter or whatever, and it's overproducing hormones, it's gonna be a problem, right? It's not like you need more of a hormone that's good for you. You need the right amount of the hormone that's good for you. So if your muscle gets smaller, it's less communicative, like we discussed. If your fat cells get bigger, they're more communicative than we want them to be. And what are they communicating? They're communicating messages of inflammation. It needs to create the message of inflammation in order to bring more blood supply to the fat cell that's getting bigger and further away from its blood supply. So now you're releasing all these inflammatory hormones, or cytokines, we call them, adipokines, the ones that come from fat, and they're taking the blood delivery and diverting it to the fat cell instead of the muscle cell, and that inflammation is causing further insulin resistance, right? And you have this cycle. So as we get older, this is happening. It's happening. Again, is it noticeable? For some people, it's not. But for many people, it's very noticeable. It's causing disease. So there are things that we can be aware of. We can be aware that we can supplement. We can supplement creatine. Creatine monohydrate is not only, we've known since the 1980s or even before then how important creatine monohydrate is for muscle activity. It's a performance type of supplement. So I'm a big fan of that. Taking vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is a major immune system regulator, and it's going to help regulate how much of these inflammatory cytokines that we produce. Back in the 80s, there was this thing called HMB. You remember this?
Yeah.
HMB is hydroxy-beta methylbutyrate. And guys were using it in the gym all the time. Why? Because research shows it boosts muscle protein production by like 20%. And it's a tried and true nutritional supplement. It's been around forever. So you can add that to your...
I'm taking note of that. I'm waiting for the side effect. I'm like, what were they doing and what happened?
No, it's been around.
I'm going to get some of that.
It's been around forever, and the anti-inflammatory effect of omega-3 fat, right? So, you can supplement omega-3 fat, but it's also great to eat a can of sardines every 5 days a week, and get a massive amount of omega-3 fat. Peptides, BPC 157 is a peptide that's definitely been showing there's a lot of optimism behind muscle mass as it relates to aging. Like if I take
that. I take the TV4 with the Wolverine complex for inflammation in joints. I find that
they're finding the research is better for aging rather than if you're 20 years old and you want to increase your muscle.
Well, I'm definitely aging.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say here, and I just want to just kind of, I'm always trying to simplify things, that we live on this continuum, and you can't stay. So if you're doing nothing, then you're declining, right? As you get, because nothing, as you're aging, you're on this continuum, and you can't stay stuck in the middle, right?
Right.
You're either declining based on...
It's like business. You're either growing or you're shrinking.
Well, that's my point is, so
say...
what we're doing now is at least stopping the slide and hopefully going back towards health and wellness. So we can shift our continuum. If we keep... The goal of fitness is just keep pushing it this way. Otherwise, it's going to fall back down this way, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you take someone who's 55 years old and they've been optimizing all this stuff for the last 15 years, that person is not going to see a jump in their health and wellness. That person is going to keep doing what they're doing so they can experience a very, very slow decline, so that when they do hit 100 years old, they're able to carry the groceries, climb the flight of stairs, get off the toilet bowl, get in the car, pick up the 30-pound grandchild, and do all the things that we want to do at 100. But for those of us who are at that same age, 55 years old, again, I'm just throwing that out there because that's our age, and you're just way below where you should be. You can experience a great increase and then create the lifestyle that slows the decline. So you too can experience that. Look, we all have family members in the old country that didn't know any of this stuff that lived to 100 years old. The one thing about living to 100 there's always, he drank until he was 85, he smoked until he was 95, he lived to 105. Well, that person was gifted by God with genetics that you and I
could live to 500.
Right. So if you're going to use that person as an example and think that that's going to be you,
an old country, now
act as if you don't have the genetic capacity to live as a smoker to 105 years.
But if we were to talk old country, those people, and there's pockets of people with longevity in Italy and Greece, I'm sure, where there's factors there where stress levels decreased, the quality of food was different. They are physically active. They're walking and they're stomping olives and they're living with family, and their stress levels a lot less, and their priorities are different. So we are talking about lifestyle. So even though there are these pockets of people who are living longer, if you really analyze what's getting them older, it's they're getting good sleep. They don't have the stress that's impacting everything else. They're eating healthy foods. They're doing a lot of physical activity. They're in the sun, and they're spending time with family and things that they feel are valuable in their life.
Right.
Which are all major factors for health. I mean, we talk about blood work all day long and cardio and lifting weights, but the overall level of consciousness, spirituality, why we do certain things are super important. That's why I keep coming back to this conversation of what got us healthy in the first 50 years, because there was a mentality and a drive and a philosophy when you're younger of competition and getting somewhere. And as we get older, we all have the same goals. It's just a matter, it actually is spending time with our family, being able to exercise and walk and experience life. And I think maybe that is the answer. The second half, our philosophy changes towards different goals, right? Yeah. The cigar in the mouth playing golf for Michael, even though a cigar's not healthy, or golf if you mentally you're a golfer. My point is that's his best life, right? So we want to always try to put our goals out there at 100 or at 80 or at 70. What does our best life could look like? How do we want to interact? And you said it great when we talk about family. You look at your parents, you look at your grandparents, you look at your great-grandparents, right? You share more DNA, more blueprint for your longevity. You're looking at your future to some degree in their eyes when you're looking across the table at them. And what did they do and how they got there, and what could you do and what could you do differently?
Right.
And then at that same table, you're looking at your kids. Who do you want to be able to do them with longer, right, and your spouse? So there's a lot to that vision casting for our health as well. And it's going to really drive how we do things. I just want people to realize that they don't have to kill themselves anymore. Or even more so, if they're not engaging or they're putting this off because they remember the pain, the effort, the sweat. Like we call it working out. Working is a bad word, right? Right. But if we change the words and we change the purpose, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And the goal is, better quality of life and enjoying time with others,
Right.
as opposed to that, 8-pack, 6-pack.
I
Wearing the thong at the beach. Right. I'm going to Aruba this week, so no thong.
The thing that I like the most is the metrics, right? I like to see my numbers, and whatever motivates you.
We're
now,
geeks that way, but
yeah.
But that's what we want.
Yeah, so I'm not in competition with others anymore. I'm not a basketball junkie the way I was in my mid-20s, getting out and playing on, making sure that your team is on the court for the longest amount of time. And I'm not the pickleball guy, and I'm not doing that.
I've left pickleball myself.
But my competition is with myself. Right, I'm always looking to do things a little bit better, improve my metrics, and it's just what motivates you. Determine what motivates you, and when you have consistency, it just feels so good to go so many months and even years of having a routine that breaking the routine is painful.
Right.
Whereas there are people who are not working out for many, many months or even years, and the thought of getting started is painful. But then once you get, just a few weeks into a routine, psychologically, you don't want to break that routine.
No.
You just want to keep going.
Yeah.
So getting to that point, I think, is a good idea. Our generation, people our age, especially a lot of our clients are very successful business people who manage companies, and they're very successful in their life, and they're trying to figure out, I sacrificed a lot to get to where my level of success. Now I want to enjoy it. Those are the people we really resonate with, because they have the means and the time to now take the neglect, turn it around, measure their improvement, and then we get them to go from being a patient to being a client, and then that client has longevity. So,
and it's our clients who tend to be those high achiever, high functioning, successful people who have been brought up with competition, hypervigilance, the best workout, the best. They want to work with the best people. That's why they come to us, and they're not ready at that point, because they're so in that mentality, right? We can tap into that grind, but the reality is we have to flip that, because most of our clients are coming from, they did everything from that perspective.
Right.
So to be able to have them dial it back, we do work with heart rate variability, dial back their nervous system, their autonomic nervous system, because if they approach this like they did everything else, they're going to miss the boat.
Yeah.
Right? We want to be able to regulate their autonomic nervous system, have them approach their exercise, their diet, their functional movement, all of that in the most exciting, positive, creative way, as opposed to a competitive way. Because if we get the same person driving their fitness like they were driving their business, they'll get the initial results, but at the end of the day, it's going to backfire.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think about Michael Jordan and who he was as a player. I'm just trying to imagine. I can't imagine that his brain. I would imagine that if he's, in a gym environment, he's going to look around him and want to like outperform, like he's going to want to compete,
Or was it like I've met a lot of Olympic athletes. I know some Olympic athletes that were skaters or gymnasts, and as they get older, they're obese. I mean, you never would know it. And they didn't do it for fitness. They did it for the sport.
Yeah.
So I believe Michael Jordan wanted to be the best basketball player.
Yeah.
Not the healthiest person on the planet.
Right.
Because I've seen him with the scotch and the cigar, right? Yeah. So, like, goal achieved probably applies that competition to business, highly successful. Yeah. He got involved with Nike, all that stuff, right? Business-wise, he probably used the competitive there.
Right.
But I don't see him as trying to be the healthiest fit person. Where you got a guy like LeBron James who – he wanted to be a great basketball player, but his fitness, like Tom Brady, like you can see how that
longevity in their sport. That was.
It was almost like their longevity in the sport became part of their longevity for their life.
Right.
And now you're talking about two different eras, right? You're talking about Jordan in the 80s, LeBron in the 2000s.
Yeah, and Brady clearly is moving towards the wellness side of things, and you could see him being that kind of a person who would follow along the lines of what we're talking about.
Because these people, they're coming out of a different era.
Yeah,
right?
I don't
Back
think
then
you're
it
going
was
to
the
see
sport.
him as obese, right?
Right.
You're not going to. Charles Barkley could really care less about anything but being a great basketball player, and then he became massively obese. After
Like a Shaq.
Right.
Right. But think about that. Like even back in the early days, you saw Babe Ruth, and they'd have a cigar, or they'd be drunk night before drunk while they're like the competition and the success in the sport wasn't correlating
with
the
their
health and fitness, nor did they were completely talented, but they didn't realize how the physical element. And as time has gone on, athletes have learned this on such a level that their performance, not only are they incredibly talented, that's a key, but you have to be talented and you have to be able to train properly now. And once you learn how to do it right, once they retire, it just becomes a continuation because they understand their physiology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've worked with a lot of professional athletes, and the difference between the Division I collegiate athletes, so for example, you take the Final Four in basketball, the NCAA, how many of those 48 athletes are going to be in the NBA? You count them on one hand.
Right.
So those are the best in the world, and they can't even compete with the best in the world, right? So when you're, matter of fact, the professional athletes that I've worked with in my career, they have the worst habits. They're not the healthy. They're not the Tom Brady's.
They're not who you want to work with. As we like healthy longevity. They want to be back on that field by Saturday. And when the season is over, I'll see you next year.
Right. And what's amazing about them is their ability to perform at the highest level and doing things from a sleep standpoint, from a drinking standpoint, from a drug standpoint. I mean, it's mind-boggling at the gift that they've been given, that they could do things that are so toxic and still be the best in the world. Right. So anyway, with all that being said, I think the takeaway here is understanding that your ability to produce and store, your ability to produce energy, VO2, and your muscle strength are the two metrics that you need to work on the most, and everything we talked about supports that in order to have longevity as your goal. And then stop going for these annual physicals that are just about disease and start looking at the 5 pillars like we've talked about that really are going to tell you how you've optimized your muscle as an organ and your energy production, right? Your ability to give your nervous system the nutrition and the energy and the oxygen and the input it needs to carry every system in your body into your old age.
Well, imagine your annual physical checkup was the blood work that you do for metabolic function to understand everything going on in your body, what's going on at that time. Mm-hmm. To get your VO2 max once a year to see how you're doing with that, because that's obviously a longevity marker. What is your movement in your get your chiropractic care so your body's moving in your balance, your nervous system functions properly. How is your body composition? How much
muscle are you losing, and how much visceral fat do you have, and how much subcutaneous fat do you have, and what are you doing to mitigate that from going in?
And what's your what's your ability to regulate your autonomic nervous system using heart variability? So if we use the 5 pillars as someone's natural, health checkup once a year, and you're constantly monitoring those numbers throughout your life, that's way better than your physical, where you're just finding out. All you're really finding out is you're not finding if you're healthy or not. I
got to take a statin drug. I got to take this drug. I got to take that drug. I might have kidney disease. I mean.
It's a screening for medical business.
Disease, right?
Yeah, for the pharmaceutical companies. It's a screening. All right, great, now you're one of us.
Correct.
Here's some blood pressure meds. We'll see you next week and see if you can be more of us next year as maybe your cholesterol will go up.
Right.
And we want to keep those numbers out on those pharmaceuticals out of your body. That's health care as opposed to sick care.
Right.
So I think this conversation today about what got you healthy in the first 50 years, whether that was healthy or not only is not going to get you healthy in the next 50 years, but believe it or not, dialing it back, training smarter, doing less, and just understanding your metrics is really all you need to do. Right. So this was a great conversation to have. I think people who are obviously working out, trying to dial it in for themselves, know what those metrics could look like, realizing that they can't work out like they used to, and maybe encouraging the fact that by staying out of the gym 5-7 days a week and having a nice balanced workout and metrics that are always increasing is really the formula for health and wellness.
Yeah. If you want to know more about some of these subjects that we're talking about, put in the comments your questions. If you want us to do a deeper dive on any of these subjects, we listen to you. We talk about things we're interested in, that we believe you're interested in. But if there's things that you want to know more about, by all means, stick it into the comments and we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, if we said something that was confusing, or you said something that you're opposed to, we like those comments too. We like a heated debate. It's the science. This is what doctors do. We love to just challenge the status quo, get as much of the best information out, apply it to our lives, and help people apply it in their lives.
Absolutely.
All right, Doc, another great conversation.
Another great conversation, for sure.
Have a great day.
All right.